Market to Market is everywhere you are. Subscribe to Market on YouTube, find us on the PBS video app to stream on demand, and add our 3 podcasts on your favorite podcasting app.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Yeager and welcome inside the home studio of the MTOM podcast here at Iowa PBS. Can we make it any more obvious with all sorts of ridiculous signs? I think not. Speaking of ridiculous, do you remember the old David Letterman top 10 list from Wahoo, Nebraska in the Home Office? Well, the Home Office has also produced 2 young men who have done a little bit of traveling in the states of Nebraska and Iowa. Seth Varner and Schneider recently completed all 939 towns in Iowa, at least visiting them. They also visited all 531 towns in Nebraska in 2020. It's a little bit of a COVID cabin fever breaker. We also find out what they learned on their trip, how they kept notes, how they maybe set up a few meetups and got to meet some pretty cool people along the way. This is a great opportunity to learn about their home state and their neighboring state. And the big question is, are they done? Are you done sharing, liking, or subscribing to this podcast yet? We come out in video form most weeks, always in audio form every Tuesday morning. So follow us where you get your podcasts and subscribe to the Market to Market YouTube channel where each of these are released every Tuesday. Feedback always, paul.yeager@iowapbs.org. I look forward to this conversation and I hope you do as well. I have to admit, when you're in the Iowa and the Nebraska shirts, that's great. So I guess I'll ask Seth, did you buy a lot of shirts and clothes when you ran across all these states?
So we bought some shirts, but it kind of depended. A lot of people liked to give us shirts. There was this one town, Manila, Iowa, gave us they gave us like 9 different shirts from 9 different businesses or something like that. We still have all of them, but we probably accumulated combined 90 shirts in just Iowa and Nebraska. Okay. We got 60. Yeah. So we probably got 150 shirts between Nebraska and Iowa so far.
So there wasn't much purchasing you had to do. There were a lot of people who were very generous in their...
Lots of generosity and hospitality between the 2 states.
All right, so Austin, what's the story on your shirt? Because, see, that's the old I that used to be on the Iowa men's basketball team jerseys kind of years ago. So where'd you get that one?
So this, if you look at it closely, it says Iowa, but if you look at it again, it also says love.
Yeah.
So we actually were sponsored by this t-shirt company called Iowa Love. They're based out of Waterloo. And so we wore their shirts in exchange for some money towards the trips. And what was cool about them was that half of their proceeds go to charity. So it was a cool thing that we just worked out for the both of us.
All right. So you guys are juniors or seniors in college?
We're juniors this year.
Okay, so I go back to my junior year of college. I was working in that summer before. I wasn't traveling around, but now that I hear about your project, I'm like, Seth, this sounded like it would have been a good idea. So this is something that Iowa was second. Let's start with Nebraska. Why'd you start Nebraska first?
So Nebraska it was always a childhood dream of mine to actually go visit every incorporated city in the state. My dad and I kind of did these little trips when I was a kid. I was like 10 or 11. And then after a while, I was like, hey, I actually want to see every single town. So obviously, Dad's not going to take me to every town in the state because that's ridiculous. So had to wait until, COVID hit in college, not a whole lot to do. There's lockdowns and everything. It's like, well, we're bored. Hey, Austin, want to go visit every town in Nebraska?
Yeah, and I was all for it.
And we just kind of went for it. So Nebraska literally started out of, I guess, a childhood dream because of my parents and a little bit of boredom.
So Seth, you're from Nebraska originally?
Yep, both of us are from Wahoo, Nebraska.
Oh, from Wahoo. Oh, well then, so this is where it all starts because the older people who listen and watch this will know Wahoo rose to fame because of David Letterman. But I mean, Wahoo always kind of, so what, that kind of, is that what kind of prompted some of this? I'm like, well, Wahoo's cool. I got a good story to tell. Or, what role did Wahoo play, Austin, in all of this?
That's a good question. Oh.
Talk about the parade and stuff. I mean.
Oh, okay. So at the end of it, when we were done with all the towns, we saved Wahoo for last. and they wanted to make it very special for us because we made it special for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole town got together and they threw a huge parade for us, which if you asked us back last year in April when this started that we were going to have a parade, we would have thought you were crazy. But it was really cool. So we had different news outlets come up and talk to us. And then it was just a special moment and then the town also gave us keys to the city. So that was something pretty cool that now everyone can say is you have a key to your own city.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like when we first started Nebraska, I remember specifically one day we kind of joked around like, oh, what if we got keys to the city for doing it? And then like it actually happened, and we're just like, oh, didn't realize this was gonna be such a big deal, but it was kind of special to see how it evolved and grew over time.
Okay, so I heard you say April. So April of 20 to September of 21 was both were the two. So how long did it take to do Nebraska?
So Nebraska was April 20th, 2020 through July 12th, 2020. Had a little break in there. And then Iowa started officially on March 30th, 21. And it ended, what day was that? September 19th?
September 19th.
Just like a few days ago.
Last week. Yeah.
So Nebraska was about 2.5 months and Iowa almost was 6 months.
Well, yeah. I mean, Nebraska's got fewer incorporated towns. Iowa, for whatever reason, wanted to have a lot more towns. That's a debate between Iowa and Nebraska. The Nebraska thing, at what point did you go, this is fun did you at one point, Seth, meet what did we get ourselves into moment? Like, this is a grind.
In Nebraska, it wasn't too bad because so we did the first 300 towns. We did like day trips, and we would go back and forth between Wahoo in a single day. We just make giant loops around the eastern part of the state back home. But we were a little crazy with the last 198 towns. So we visited 198 towns in 8 days, traveled 4,500 miles, and managed to get to all those western towns. And we would go sunrise to sunset every day and be like, wake up at 5, go to bed at 10, wake up at 5, bed at 10, just nonstop 8 straight days of that. And looking back, it was a lot of fun, but like we don't know how we like survived that trip.
Austin, do you have a similar take? Did you ever feel that it was a grind?
Well, so towards the Iowa part, yes. So it was about middle of July, and we realized, so we've only done about 400 or so towns, and we still have like 500 left, and school starts next month. So at that point, we knew it was time to get like super serious about it and get going like every week. We did, after that, we did an 8-day trip, which we did 170 something, 170, and then we did a 6-day trip, and then we did 2 back-to-back 3-day trip weekends, and that's how we finished it off. When we started, we like took breaks every now and then to hang out with friends or go to work. So it was slower towards the beginning and it picked up towards the end.
Okay, work. You don't have much time to work. You mentioned one sponsor. Did you pick up a couple others that maybe helped pick up some expenses?
So we only had Iowa Love as like our main sponsor, I guess you could say, but we did start a GoFundMe at some point. And then we kind of used revenue from the 531 book sales to fund a little bit of it as well. And then to top it all off, we just have jobs. So I'm a resident assistant at Nebraska Omaha. So I'm kind of the party pooper, and I got to break up no.
And I work at Hy-Vee, so best job out there.
You could have done that. You could have done that in either state. Said I'm here to work for a day. That would have worked out just fine.
Hey, get us a hotel room, and we'll work for a few hours.
There weren't, you mentioned a couple of longer trips, 8-day trips, things like that. That's probably where you had a little more of the expense because of the hotels and things like that. But book sales. So is there a book in the works for Iowa if you did one for Nebraska?
So we actually, I grabbed a Nebraska book here just in case the topic came up, of course. But,
where do I get such a book?
I know, right? So there is an Iowa book in the works. So we're going to talk, and there we'll kind of talk about like our experience in every town in the state, just kind of summarize some of the things we did. And then also it's going to kind of double as a travel guide, a history book, and a living photo album. So we'll share some history about every town. We took 22,000 photos in Iowa, so you can't fit that into one book. So we do these QR codes. So every town gets their own section of the book. QR codes. You scan the code, you can see all the pictures we took from that town, as well as like some history, that kind of stuff. So slowly working away on that, and hopefully it's out by end of November.
Austin, do you need a map to get around Iowa or Nebraska now?
No, I don't think so. I think I've seen enough. Maybe some of the smaller communities, if you ask, where's that at? I'm like, need a map to see that. But I know for the most part, a lot of where they're at.
Was there a checklist when you got to a town? Say you got to Mediapolis, Iowa. What did you do?
So,
I remember, I think Mediapolis is a Freedom Rock, if I remember right. So that was a big thing that we did. We did the 95 Freedom Rocks that existed at the time.
Yeah.
So Bubba finished the other 3. I think he's finishing at number 99 right now.
He's got 1 county left.
Yeah, it's Lynn County. I think it's over
Cedar
by
Rapids.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yep.
So he's almost done. So we did all those. Like, we didn't really have like a checklist necessarily, but like when we got to certain towns, like we would focus on certain things. Like if we saw a church, we get a picture of the church. Bars and restaurants are really popular in small towns because, everybody has the best tenderloin, the best burger. So it's like, if you don't get a picture of the bar, we definitely heard about it.
Yeah.
If we happen to miss it. Schools,
schools,
kind of like the center points of the community. We kind of try to focus on that stuff, and then grab like some businesses here and there. We knew we couldn't get everything, but we tried to get just as much as we could.
So how do you, as a TV producer, I'm supposed to be organized and catalog things. How did you do that as you went along?
Just like you said, one more time.
So what I do is I have to, when I travel, you log certain things. Were you doing notebooks? Were you posting everything on Instagram live or as you went? Or how did you keep track of everything you picked up in each town? Because if you did 8 in a day, you're going to be mush at the end of the day.
Yeah, so after each town, we actually posted to Facebook. And so each town we put what number it was out of 939, the county, the population, and then a brief history of the town, and then all the pictures in it. And we did that live after each visit to every town.
So that was kind of our log, yeah. We would post 5 to 10 minutes after we visit a town. You could follow along pretty closely where we were in real time if you paid close enough attention. So that, I guess, and now like for the book, like we just go back, we look at the photos, and him and I have pretty crazy memories, so we can just look at these photos, just remember we met this person, we did this, they said this. Like we just have good memories. So,
do you have? Did you list where you were going each day so people could maybe follow along, or you could do meetups in towns?
Yeah. So Seth posted the itinerary before we go on the trips, and people then leave suggestions on what each town has to offer. So then if there's like big things in each town, we would put it on the itinerary so we know we would have to go to it, and then people just left other suggestions and little things to see. So we did a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I would just kind of pull, like, people would leave 300 suggestions for, like, say 20 towns or so. So I'm like, all right, I got to narrow this down a little bit. And I just kind of see, like I'd calculate the fast route between towns, and like, okay, we can eat at 1:30 at this bar that like 10 people recommended. Like, we tried to do stuff people wanted us to see for the most part. But yeah, as I say, we met probably, I'd say 100 something people, yeah. 200. We met a lot of people along the way. Granted, a lot of those were kind of brief chats, but
yeah.
It was really cool getting to, meet a bunch of mayors and other, yeah.
Well, so only Wahoo gave you the key to the city?
Only Wahoo.
Only Wahoo.
Just the hometown. But
that's all right. The hometown's got to represent. I'll quiz you here. Jessup, Iowa. Do you remember Jessup, Iowa?
A little bit.
So that's my hometown. So I should have said. So that's the thing. When someone says a town, what does it take to trigger something from that town without looking in the book or your notes?
That's hard, because usually if it's like a town I really don't remember, I just look at the pictures, and the pictures are what sparks these memories from all these different things. But
yeah, I was to say, usually it's like a specific site or a person. If we have like a if we get at a restaurant in a town, like we'll probably remember the restaurant. If we met somebody, we'll probably remember, like, okay, Mechanicsville, we met the mayor. Yeah. It's just stuff like that. Like, people say the name, like if we met someone or saw like a big attraction. Otherwise, photos, then we can kind of remember, oh, right, this had like, Jessup had the gazebo in the middle of town directly across from the downtown.
Excellent. Okay, very good. You nailed that one. Jessup is near the city that has the big iron skillet, which is the town of.
And then,
You got Brandon. There you go. When you go to a community in a bar and everybody claims they have the best, does that unite us where we all think where we're from or what we have in our town is the best? Was that one of the cool things? Because to me, that seemed like one of the cool things that you were getting to experience.
Yeah, it's just the pride of each town. Like everyone has their thing that they say that is like, especially at the bars, like you said, best tenderloins or best burgers. It just shows that, wow, it just really, what's the word I'm trying to think of? I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, you said pride. You nailed it.
Yeah,
pride.
that's really what it is. It's community pride. It's just like, it doesn't matter where we go. You know, it could be a town of 15 people and they're super proud of like their church in town or something. Like they'll say, oh, we have the best congregation in the state. It's like, no one's scared to say, like, no one's scared to make that claim. It doesn't matter, you know, Little Beaconsfield, population 15 versus Des Moines, you know, people are going to say, oh, Beaconsfield is better than Des Moines because, you know, that's peace and quiet. People in Des Moines will say they're better because, you know, bustling city. It's like everyone kind of has their own preferences and stuff. And it's kind of cool to see that. Everyone just has that.
Okay, big cities. How did you accomplish? You mentioned Waterloo. How do you try to fit Waterloo into half a page of a book?
Yeah, so I guess for the book itself, and I'd just be kind of like, we'll probably go over like how it got its name and just really quickly mention some like the big attractions. Waterloo in particular, like there'll be two sections. We'll talk about Iowa Love since that'll be a part of our story. And then for the actual town itself, like just major attractions. I think they have like the John Deere Museum there. They've got some other things in the downtown district.
Yeah.
It's like we just do some research and kind of put that in there for the travel guide aspect.
All right, in Nebraska, was there things that you learned from going from Nebraska that you tried to do differently in Iowa?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
I would. There's a lot. So one main thing would be take more pictures. I would say be more thorough through these towns. When we first started Nebraska in April 2020, when we went to these towns, we went to towns when it was pitch black outside, so you couldn't see anything when you were taking pictures. Speaking of pictures, we took like 5 pictures maybe in the whole town.
There were some towns we would take a picture with the welcome sign and then we'd leave immediately afterwards because when it started, we didn't share it to Facebook. There wasn't a book in mind. We didn't know it was going to blow up. It was just something we were going to do for fun, like on our own, not tell anybody basically. Like mention it. It was kind of just like
make a scrapbook at the end and
that was going to be it.
Yeah.
And then it only came out because someone said, "Oh, you should make a Facebook page." Okay, well, Facebook page blows up instantly. It's like, oh, so we have to actually like start like taking more pictures and like we can't visit at midnight or something or like so. Those towns that we visited in the beginning, I mean, they're close up to Wahoo. We've been to those towns 100 times before, some of them, but.
Well, at what point, I mean, how far into your journey were you in Nebraska when you realized, oh, maybe we should do the Facebook page? I mean, was that halfway, a third of the way in?
It's like 60 towns.
Only 60 towns or so.
Okay.
We just, someone told us, we're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, so I mean, we were like probably a 9th or an 8th done with the state. And then we went back, we posted the pictures we did take to Facebook and stuff. But I'll say for the book now, we've gone back and added pictures and all that. Like I said, the communities that we did that to, like we were close enough where like we go through those like every other week, just going back and forth between Omaha and stuff even.
What was the big prompt that blew you up virally on Facebook? Was there one specific story or just your family and friends really were energetic on your behalf?
I can think of like a couple events. Yeah. So our page is kind of unique. So we don't do any marketing or anything like that. We just go to the towns we visit them. It kind of grew just off people sharing it with their friends. So people, they'd be proud that we visited. We'll just use Wahoo, for example. Mm-hmm. When we post the Wahoo post, that I think it got shared 80, 90 times or something like that. From there, all the people in Wahoo share that to their extended family. People who left Wahoo and now live in other places, and they share that. And that's kind of just how our page grew, honestly. So think every single town we do this for, those posts just slowly, they all blow up within like their own community, like channels, I guess you could say. Like no matter what town it was, it would get shared tons of times and the page just naturally grew. like there wasn't really one news station or like radio interview nothing really in particular. It was just over time, just people sharing it, and we kind of went, I guess, semi-viral on Facebook.
Austin, is there a way when you look at the two states, how are Iowa and Nebraska similar? I'll ask you the similar question. Seth, you get to ask how they're different.
Well, I would say the hospitality is the one big way that they're similar. People say Nebraska nice or Iowa nice, but it's really Midwest nice. Everyone we meet is always just super energetic and excited to talk to us. And they don't have to give us anything, but earlier we talked about, they give us shirts or buy us a meal or buy us gas. It's just the level of hospitality is really awesome.
It's weird a couple of Nebraska boys could go into Iowa and be treated like family. You know, the Iowa-Nebraska beef is like, it's pretty strong. I mean, Nebraska's better. but differences wise, I mean, Iowa has more towns, I guess. I mean, really, we're not that different. That's just the thing. You know, we're both Midwestern states, you know, got the corn and the football programs and like, you know, whatever else. It's like, we have kind of the same, people are generally like the same, I guess. I'm really trying to think of a big difference, but all I can think of is like towns are older by the Mississippi River than the Missouri River. It's like, I mean, that's a big difference, but
and maybe geography-wise a little bit, but like
a little bit.
Yeah. It's not a big difference, but
yeah. I was just saying, honestly, we're surprisingly similar despite our differences.
All right, so are there towns, Seth, that you had a preconceived notion of from growing up near your rival town? Say, I know Fremont's not a neighbor town, or Norfolk or some. Like, I remember this town, Norfolk, I never liked, but then you went there and it was awesome. Was there any of those examples where a previous experience was changed when you went through it on your trip?
So I kind of mentioned earlier, like my dad and I had done some towns when I was really little. So I remember like down by Seward in Nebraska, we went to these small towns like Bee and kind of Staplehurst and stuff. When I'm little going through these towns, like the things I took pictures of then, I took a picture of the little green population sign. When we went to York, I took a picture of Walmart as a 10-year-old. That's what caught my eye in York, Nebraska. It was the hot air balloon water tower and Walmart, and that's all I took. Whereas now, we went to York, you know, we've been there several times since then, but they've got a museum, they've got a college, they have the world's largest collection of marbles, fun fact. Like it's just different things. Like I remember going to these towns when I was little and thinking, wow, there's nothing here. I would never want to live here. To going now and it's like, wow, they have some kind of unique things, you know, in York, Nebraska, you wouldn't expect to find the marble collection or stuff like that. So that's kind of been a theme for me. It's just all these towns I went to as a kid and just didn't think anything of. Now I've kind of grown to appreciate them more.
Austin, anything that was different for you? Same question, I guess.
Yeah. So I've never been to like super far out west in Nebraska until these trips. So when we went to Scottsbluff, I didn't really know what to think of what it was going to be like. And you get there and it's this it's a big city and it has like the hills and
the Wildcat Hills,
are really cool. But another place would be outside of Valentine, Smith Falls. See, before this, I did not know Nebraska. It had Nebraska's tallest waterfall there, and when I went there, I was just amazed by it because seeing how big it was just a really cool sight to see.
Mm-hmm.
So, is this information that people told you when you got there, or what research that you had done? How did you know some of these things, or come to find these things out?
I know for Nebraska, I've just been a history buff. I was the weirdo that would read like history books in like first grade and stuff. So I've always been a fan. So I knew like Smith Falls existed, that kind of stuff. I'd never seen it before, but I remember even second grade when I go to Ashfall Fossil Beds in Royal for our family vacation. You know, brother wants to go to Disney World, other brother wants to go to Legoland. I want to go see the dinosaur fossils in Royal, Nebraska. It's just won? Like, what's that?
Who won?
None of us. Our dad took it to Missouri. What is it? DeSoto National Wildlife Refuge. It's kind of over by Blair, I think. So no one. But I lost my train of thought.
Because I broke it. I'm sorry. So Seth, what is your major in college at UNO?
Marketing, sales, entrepreneurship.
All right. And how about you, Austin?
Sales.
What do you guys want to do then? Austin, what are you thinking?
That's a very good question. Still debating stuff. I might want to go work for my family's friend. He is the head regional sales manager for Pete's Coffee, which is Caribou Coffee. Something like that, or something with medical sales, maybe. I'm still debating everything right now.
Seth, what about you?
So
Yeah, you got a year.
What's that?
You got a year. You got time.
I got time.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like maybe starting my own travel agency afterwards. I've always been a travel nut. It's been my kind of favorite thing. I love just going to see these small towns, everything they have to offer, and kind of encouraging tourism, that kind of thing. And I figure if I start an agency, it's like, well, what better person to go to than someone who's literally been to every single town in both these states, plus maybe others in the future for all we know. I just think it'd be a lot of fun to be involved in the travel industry and, maybe work for Nebraska or Iowa tourism someday. We'll just have to see what happens.
And in your friendship, I mean, you guys are from the same town, but I mean, how well did you know each other before you started doing this?
Well, so we've known each other since kindergarten, but we were not friends.
We hated each other in junior high.
Yes, we were not friends at all until I started working at Dairy Queen, which Seth was already working at. And then
Copycat.
And then our friendship kind of grew just from there. We started hanging out after work. And then, ever since then, really.
Yeah, I was to say, we were friends probably since like sophomore year of high school or like early junior year until now, juniors in college. So,
are you still friends?
No,
barely.
Yeah, barely. Exactly. You spend all that time in the car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tons of time in the car.
Were you listening to music while you were driving, podcasts, or were you just trying to catch up on what we just saw?
It just depended on the day, really. For the most part, it was music. I know one trip I made Seth listen to some Conan O'Brien podcasts.
They weren't too bad.
I was like, they're pretty good, so I thought that'd be fun to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of played card games too. I mean, there's My Cows. My Cows we played kind of towards the start. We got kind of bored of it towards the end, but there's this game. So it's if you see a herd of cows, you got to say My Cows, and you claim that herd of cows. If you see a cemetery, you say dead cows, and whoever you're playing against, they lose all of their cows. So the whole point of the game is to end up with the most cows by the end of the day. And so it gets pretty competitive, as you're looking through these cornfields, searching for the distant herds of cattle. And I don't know. You got to find something to keep yourself entertained. So that's kind of what we did.
Well, we started to notice between Iowa and Nebraska. In Iowa, there was a lot more cemeteries than we saw cows eventually. Like every other town's like, oh, dead cows, no, dead cows, dead cows.
Yeah, the game kind of died at that point. But yeah. Pun
intended there.
Oh, very intended.
Yeah. The thing about your project, and you talk about marketing and tourism and things like that, I understand you're kicking around South Dakota, maybe, or other states.
Let's just say it would be a mountain of fun to rush around more summer. That's kind of what I've been telling people, just kind of a little cryptic like that. But yeah, well, I mean, we're considering it. We just have to see.
We'll see. Yeah. It's like a March question. It's like ask March and see what we think.
Yeah, but I'll say we need to kind of process Iowa before we turn our focus to
another state.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to the Conan O'Brien thing before I move on. I mean, Team Coco, wouldn't it be awesome if you end up on his podcast or something?
That
would be so cool.
Or like Tonight Show or something.
Yeah, this is like a Tonight Show type thing.
Jimmy Fallon? That would be awesome.
This would be perfect. I'm just saying they need to pick us up, but
well, you went through a town. I'm going to say it's not Dysart, Belle Plaine, Iowa. There is a sign, like an old service station. That guy in the 70s or 80s was on the Tonight Show because he had all these signs. The old Johnny Carson show, Nebraska native, you well know. He liked that kind of thing. So there is a chance.
I feel like we reach out,
you never know.
Honestly, never know. We don't reach out for interviews. Everyone usually comes to us, but I feel like if we really tried, like
that'd be
maybe.
So cool.
Maybe you never know.
Maybe if you had a marketing degree or something, maybe you have to wait until you get the degree before you figure it out. But I mean, this is something. I mean, seriously, this is we produced at Iowa Public Television back in the day a show where a guy went around and traveled the Midwest. He traveled the parks. He did. I mean, there are travel shows. I mean, have you thought of video and maybe start telling it that way, or just stick with the books?
I mean, we've kind of talked about like TikTok. Obviously, our generation, we know we would have blown up on TikTok for sure. But making those videos, like I tried editing like some history TikToks at one point. I'm like, this is way too much work. And while we're on the road, it wouldn't be possible for us. We wouldn't be able to post live or anything.
Yeah.
And just the hours that would go into that. I mean, if we had the money to hire like someone to like record us and then hire an editor, sure,
yeah.
I was just say, why not? But for us personally, like we know how to edit video, that kind of stuff, but like we just don't have the time as college students to do it. But it would be really cool to do something like that.
So, Austin, sales is about relationships. You have, if you get a territory in Iowa and Nebraska, you absolutely have an in with everybody, right? Or this is such a great town. You know what reminds me of? It reminds me of Shenandoah. You know, I mean, you're totally set.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing because that's one of my favorite things about these trips is forming the connections with people. When the people reach out and they want to meet us, just get them telling us about the history of the towns or just about them personally. It's just awesome to form those kind of connections.
Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, I mean, we met like a few hundred people, and then the Facebook page, like people message us, they comment and everything. It's like I would consider that a little connection. Us posting that picture of their school they graduated from in 1960 or whatever. We helped kind of build a connection because we gave them we helped a memory resurface that they wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And now they're always going to think about that when they come to our page. Like, oh yeah, those guys took a picture of my school and my church, or
Did you ever have passengers that maybe came along for a trip here or two?
So in Nebraska, we had more people come than Iowa. So for Iowa, we had. Well, I guess we've had
technically seven.
I think. But for people that came on like bigger trips for more than like one town, it was 3 people.
Yeah. Did they find that it was a grind?
So the guy we took, his name's Max, for a 3-day trip. He was the person we took the longest on trips. Mm-hmm. He was super excited about the first day or two, and then you could tell by looking at him during the 3rd day he was like,
he was over it. I mean,
it's time to go home.
And we understand too, because at that point we were visiting towns 44, 45, 46. When you visit that many towns and that short amount of time, it's like if you're not used to it like we are, it's people are like, this is insanity.
Yeah, we're just crazy. So
I mean, we're just absolutely like, yeah.
All right, Seth, you're the RA. On your dorm floor, what do people say when they find out who you guys are, what you did, how I spent my summer?
It's funny you say this, actually. So I talked to a resident the other day, Lexi, and we have to do these things called roommate agreements where you just like the roommates have to agree on like who cleans what, that kind of thing. And so I was in there just out of nowhere. She brings up the fact like, oh, she's from Marcus, Iowa. I'm like, oh yeah, nice little community. Like met this guy there and stuff. And she's like, actually now I think about it, you were all over my Facebook like earlier this summer because her family from the area and her old classmates had been sharing it. And so like I was saying earlier, people just share it. And so even people have moved away. Lexi's been going to school here for 2 years. She saw the post, even though she's been away from home all this time. And she didn't put 2 and 2 together until I said I had been there before. And that's happened over and over and over and over again.
I'm kind of a big deal. Is that what that type of thing? Seems to be subtle about it.
It's like what other people say, honestly. The other RAs, it's like, oh yeah, Seth's just famous. Like they introduced me to like their roommates. So I'm like, no, I just visited towns.
All right, Austin, how about you? Is it something that have people figured out maybe, hey, you're that guy?
Hy-Vee, actually, it's happened a lot. So I can tell you 2 different stories. So first of all, once my coworkers, all of them, once they found out about this, they were in love with it. So now every time I go to work, during the travels, they're like, oh, what town do you go to next? What's next? Where are you going? Have you been to my hometown yet? I'm like, I'll get there eventually. And they were very understanding too about scheduling because they knew the project that we were trying to get done. But one time, so I deliver online groceries. I take the groceries to people's cars. So I took these groceries out to these 2 ladies one time, and I was putting their groceries in the back seat, and then the lady goes, she's like, oh, so is this your like full-time job? I'm like, no, I'm a college student. I like to travel also. Well, I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, you look super familiar. And then she said, are you one of those guys that went and traveled to all the towns in Nebraska? And I'm like, yes. I was like, that actually
That's me. Here we go.
That was the craziest thing that's happened to me in a while. That was something super.
I got another story I just thought of if you have time quick.
You're fine. We're good.
Okay. So for
Somebody
RA,
might be listening to this while they're doing their own road trip, so I'm just here to help.
this is true. So as an RA, I have to give campus tours. I show prospective students around and stuff like that, and kind of show like, here's why you should live in the dorms. Here's why you should go to UNO, like that whole kind of thing. So we got to the conclusion of one of my tours, and I was kind of like wrapping up and stuff, like talking about how UNO is so great, everything. And the mom wanted to compliment me to my supervisor. I'm like, oh boy, but like she said that, so I don't know if she's actually gonna like say I did something wrong, or I'm like, well, my supervisor's over there, so she comes out and she's like, did you know Seth's been like every incorporated town in Nebraska? Because on RA staff, all they do is talk about it. So she says this to the mom, and the dad kind of looks at me. He kind of looks at me again. He's like, were you on NET the other night? I'm like, Nebraska Stories, because they interviewed us, and he's like, that was it. So this random kid I gave a tour, like their parents had just seen me on TV like 2 days before, and then everyone's just like mind blown. It's like
Stuff like that is crazy.
we were just out here visiting towns, like,
Yeah.
and then we get recognized by these just people we've
Yeah.
never met before. It's bizarre.
It's a strange phenomenon that people have when they see somebody they think they know, and here you are connecting and getting a chance. So I guess I'll finish up with this. If you had the chance, Austin, to do it again, would you do it?
Probably, honestly, and maybe do meet some other people and form different connections. And that would be the one thing I would look forward to if I was doing the whole process again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to guess that when you did post the itinerary and people knew you were coming, that actually probably helped a little bit.
I think people would share it ahead of time. I know the last trip in particular, we can see who shares the post if they have a public page. And most towns actually have their own Facebook page, no matter what size they are. So there's like, I was reading in Austin, there's like 15 towns on last trip. They all shared it. One town, I think it was Lone Rock, said, ready to have your town reviewed. And then everyone's like talking in the comments like, oh, we need to clean up this and do that. And it's like,
Hey,
oh, yeah.
community improvement, betterment, pride.
Pride in their own
It all
cities,
ties
yes.
back to pride, yeah.
Okay, I didn't think I was going to do this, but Seth, we'll finish with this. Favorite town you went to? No, don't answer that one. That's ridiculous. Do you have an answer for that one?
So the answer I give everybody is there's so many unique things in every town, it's impossible to pick just one. We've had different experiences in every single town. It's just like, we might have a favorite town like of a day maybe.
Yeah.
But like even then, we've got 50 different favorite towns, and it's like, and even still, every town's so unique. It's hard to pick one.
It is, and I get that too. I mean, I've lived in a number of places, and you're like, everybody has everybody does something better than someone else, but they can't do everything perfect, except Wahoo, Nebraska, where they give you the keys to the city.
I mean, Wahoo is like the best town in the state. I just can't say that.
Yeah, I get it.
Towns.
Yeah, totally. Austin Schneider, Seth Varner, guys, thank you so much. Congratulations. Great effort.
Hey, thanks for
Thank
taking
you.
time to talk to us. We appreciate it.
My thanks to Seth Varner and Austin Schneider as they visit all 531 Nebraska towns and 939 Iowa towns. Always fun, and so are your comments. Paul.Yeager at Iowa PBS or Market to Market at iowapbs.org. Thank you so very much. We always appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time.